Suns fans, you know what time it is in the PHX.
Empire of the Suns.
Phoenix Suns.
Empire of the Suns.
Hello there, and welcome to the Empire of the Suns podcast. My name is Kellan Olson, joined as always by Kevin Zimmerman. What's up?
Hiya.
The trades are happening already, bud.
It's the off season. We're here. Gary Payton 2 got his opt-in. Alex Caruso just got traded for Josh Giddey, apparently straight up, which is breaking your brain right now.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to see. I am waiting. It's the wait and see here, but usually there is a immediate follow-up of like picks are coming to Chicago or whatever, and picks. But this one is we'll talk about it in a second. We're underway though. This is what we expected. I think once the season ended, if you're not familiar with the new rule, Bobby Marks sharing it, Wendy talking about it, you can start to work with your own free agents immediately. So that Royce O'Neal extension that you and I have talked about for a while now, as I think we overlook how easy it is for them to be like, yeah, they got to pay him, and then expecting the Suns to pay him because that was an impossible ask just 2 years ago. But now we're in this space with Ishbia's ownership where the expectation is that they will sign him, and the expectation is that they will sign him on a 3 or 4 year deal that helps Royce get a long-term deal and also helps the Suns in giving them some trade flexibility, opens up a bit more if they want to do that. With this trade kicking off, again, the trade is apparently right now it's just Caruso for Josh Giddey, which makes no sense to me because Caruso reportedly had far more value than this, unless we're misunderstanding what Josh Giddey's value is. Woj tweeting that he's a potential all-star, like that's a very sweet take from Josh Giddey's agent, but like let's calm it down a bit. But either way, we're kicking off. Things are going. So you and I, before we get into the main point of this episode, which is to look at the guys that we like the most for the Suns of 22, rehashing where we are at with this offseason and with the draft in particular. This is one of the three, maybe just two actually, trade capitals of the NBA calendar. Trade holidays, however you want to phrase it. It's the trade deadline and then this date when trades happen. The Suns, of course, on draft night have the ability to trade their 2031 pick as well. I've written about this on the series that I've been doing on ArizonaSports.com, just a little bit here and there, through stuff that you can hear in my voice right now. We're making it work. Whatever, man. It's that time of year. That's what I always say.
First day of summer.
Went really in depth on Nasir Little and Yusuf Nurkic. And basically my takeaway, Kevin, after spending even more time on it, was it doesn't really make sense. I don't really see it. I don't really see how they can trade these guys in a two-team deal and make a move that makes sense for them and that would make sense for the other team as well. Now that you've had even more time to spend with it, are you still in that zone?
Yeah, I just don't think there's enough value in those two players to get anything significant. Like if we're talking salary dumps, how many salary dumps really happen at this point in the season? Usually it's going to be February. I think we can circle back to those guys then. I think right now, to me, and also like obviously it depends on who's out there for dangling right now. It just doesn't seem like it's going to happen unless it's attached to something very big and very complicated that we can't foresee. So that being said, and not trying to guess all that nonsense, I think my thing is we focus on the draft, and we're going to focus on the draft anyway because there's no point in not to until they trade that thing. But there's moving up, moving down stuff you could talk about. We're going to get into this deeply in this podcast. I think there's just this middle rung of the first round where it's going to be kind of up to you. It's going to be, okay, there's a lot of guys you could take here. Do you want skill? Do you think this guy is just going to be an awesome player in 4 years? Like, there's a lot of ways to approach this. So I just think there's a lot more value, and there are decent players in this draft who can help you immediately, and that's, I think, what the Suns have got to consider.
They do, absolutely. Again, to briefly review, the Suns cannot aggregate salaries on draft night. There is some wonky stuff where, like, if they trade Yusuf Nurkic to a team full of cap space and then they just get nothing back, they turn into a first apron team, and then they could do it technically. But at that point, like, Nurk's contract is the one that you would be aggregating mostly anyway, as it is. So it doesn't make a ton of sense. So you're looking at 1-for-1 salary swaps. Gerald Bourguet over PHNX went through a ton of them. I used a couple of his examples in my stories for both of those guys, and there just wasn't really a trade that, like, matched for me at all. The one that did the most, I think, out of all of them was Nurk for Dorian Finney-Smith, but even that is one where I think you would need to include the pick, maybe both of them. I'm not really sure what Finney-Smith's value is at this point, but how much would Brooklyn want Nurk? How much does he have value at this point? What's their situation at center with Nick Claxton's free agency? I don't know. And all of those conversations just kind of go back to that kind of thing where you're going into 3 or 4 like big questions where the trade doesn't just make a ton of sense.
They have to be 2 or even 3, 4 teams changing kind of how they operate, right? If you get rid of Nurk, you're probably saying, okay, we're going to space out, go smaller. Like, we don't know any philosophical changes with the Brooklyn Nets other than they want to be better. For that example. But I think that's why this is, at some point, like, you could go through every single contract that exactly fits with each of those guys, but I don't know. I don't need to do that. That's a lot of work, but also it's a lot of, like, you're guessing on philosophical changes from front offices of teams we don't follow very much. So
no, but if we would have sat here and said, like, could you get Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey, you would have said no, and you would have been like 2 picks, probably.
Yeah,
at least. But here we are. So with that being said, we'll see. I think that the X factor on draft night is Matt Tellem, who was brought in specifically for finding creative ways on the trade market and in other avenues, just to bring extra creativity, outside the box thinking, with looking for deals that teams might not find naturally on their own. So there are weird 3 to 4 team instances where we could be sitting here talking on draft night. Okay, the Suns have the right guy at center now. Okay, they have the 5th starter. But my overwhelming consensus is we will be sitting here talking on draft night and we still will be like, oh yeah, Grayson's probably the starter because, or yeah, Yusuf Nurkic is your center. Like, it's things that you would like to upgrade in another situation where you didn't have all of these restrictions in place and you weren't so handcuffed, but they're just really handcuffed. So that's where we're at. Bronny James, Rich Paul saw the light, for me at least, so this is like the last time I'll have to talk about it, I assume, where he came out and said LeBron James is not signing on the minimum in Phoenix. He just came out and said it. Bronny James got his second workout with the Suns. You wrote about this and just how, okay, this is either an extreme favor now for Clutch at this point, which is what I still believe it to be, and is just another one of these instances. And I think Rich Paul, without saying it, said to ESPN's Jonathan Givony, like, this is stuff I do. Like, this is stuff that we do a lot. And it's just getting attention because it's Bronny James, and that's something that we were talking about.
What did he say his name, if his name was Chris Jacobson, or he made up if Bronny's
draft
name?
Twitter really loved that. Like some random dude, random prospect, I don't know, that they were like, oh, wow, look at that, the random shout. Like, that would be like...
Oh, was that a random shout? I thought that was a fake made-up name.
Was it a fake made-up name? Maybe people were making up a fake scouting report for him on my timeline or whatever, but... I don't know. And I'm glad I don't know. I'm glad that I can sit here and say, like, yeah, that's not a real person. I would have been able to say that 3 years ago, but now I can't. So I'm glad to have that sanity restored in my life. But Brian James coming back for a second workout, 22, it would be a big-time reach to take him. And at this point, he is certifiably, without question, like we've been saying already, but now we have confirmation from his agency that you are just doing this because you want Bronny James. And I don't think they want Bronny James. I think they're working out Bronny James to find him based on everything they need in the draft and what he is. It doesn't make sense just for a myriad of reasons.
The amount of how Suns fans would be not excited if he went with the number 22 overall pick versus if he was signed in an undrafted, like as an undrafted free agent. Like that's like another conversation whether you do that, but I think that's much more palatable to fans, but also like you can look at it as straight up like, okay, if you have a roster spot, you think you're gonna have a roster spot, would you sign this guy straight up undrafted? Like Suns would think about it. I would, for non-LeBron reasons, but like if you think he's a good basketball prospect down the road, you could do that. So I think, like again, like this is standard stuff here.
I still can't get over Chicago's, like, Chris Herring's tweeting about it right now. Like, their whole problem this year has been spacing, and they added a guy who can't shoot. And didn't get a pick. That's insane. Let's talk about 22, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we are both going to rattle off our top 10 big board, whatever fancy phrase that gets clicks you want to label it as, for us to go through. And what we are doing is, I think that every draft, we talk about 2020 a lot because that was as soon as these 7 or 8 guys are off the board, I don't know who's going to go next. It could be this dude ranked 32nd. It could be this dude ranked 11th. We don't know. With this draft, I think it has been established that there's a very clear cutoff in like the high teens or so. So with that in mind, I'm going off ESPN's big board here. Guys that we are not putting under consideration for the Suns just because they won't be on the board. Again, I say won't, but there's a small chance that someone slips.
Couple of them, yeah.
Risa Shea, Sarr, Klingon, Shepard, Buzelis, Castle Connect, Dillingham, Saloon, I don't know. Topic, Williams, Carter, Holland, Jacoby Walter, Jared McCain, and Zach Edey. We're not going to be ranking any of those guys because we assume by the time 22 comes up, they're all gone. I think once you get to Walter and McCain, maybe Edey slips a bit too as well. But we're going to be starting in the high teens essentially with the guys that we're ranking, because I think that the potential and gap in just like the prospects is pretty evident once you get past someone like Devin Carter at 12 or Ron Holland at 13.
Yeah.
And I think that Walter and McCain and Edey are like just slightly behind them to the point where there's a pretty distinct drop off once you get, again, to the mid to high teens. So we're going through our 10 guys. We have our 10 guys. We'll talk about each guy when they come up. So if you say Tristan Da Silva is your number 3 and I have him as my number 7, we'll talk about him when we get to 7, and then we'll kind of go through as we go on. We'll go from 10 to 1. Give me your 10.
I'm starting at 10.
Yep.
Disclaimer on this guy. Didn't watch much tape, but Kellan said I should include him, and I was going to anyway because everyone else has him. But Johnny Furphy. Mm-hmm. He's my 10.
Johnny Furphy, a one-and-done wing out of the University of Kansas. And essentially the read here for me, I have him 8 on mine. You are getting what this draft is about, but later. And what I mean by that is this draft is crazy. It's like 15 raw wings, and 4 of them are going to be really like good, maybe 3. Mm-hmm. 8 of them are going to be horrible, like bad. So Alex Sarr is a big, I understand, but you've got Risa Shea, Sarr. Is Reed Shepard like that? Reed Shepard's basically Grayson Allen, right?
He's more of a,
I know, white shooter, I know, but he just based on the scouting report, based on what I've seen out of him, it seems like
some people categorize him as into.
Can he be better Grayson Allen, and he's a top 5 pick? Like this draft is crazy. Buzelis. Connect is the rare seasoned player in this group. Then you've got Saloon, you got Topic, you got Cody Williams, you got Ron Holland, you got Jacoby Walter, Jared McCain, more of a guard, but still a freshman in that regard. You got Furphy, who is the 10th guy that I just named.
Yeah.
And he's 18 on ESPN's big board. He's somewhere, to me, it seemed like the momentum that he got from the combine process and the pre-draft process, I don't think he'll be on the board when the Suns are up. But the appeal essentially is that you get a bigger wing who moves well, and you can envision what he is in the league. This is the scouting report for all of these guys, essentially, where they have a defined thing or two that they do fairly well, or they should do well, and then you just have to see it on a floor, not even like a college floor or an NBA floor. I'm just saying on a floor, because this wasn't a guy who necessarily lit the league on fire, Kevin. He played a similar-ish role at Kansas to the one he's going to play here.
I want to highlight too. You made your list like Suns 422.
Yeah, we should have clarified that earlier, but this is absolutely like with the Suns in mind, their needs, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, so he's I think he'd be higher on my board if I was.
He
just
took 6 shots a game,
straight big board,
206 shots for his whole season.
Yeah, so that's like I haven't, even though I have admittedly not watched him, he has not done enough in the college game. Not enough tape, even if I watched every single minute of that basketball team, to make me feel great about him impacting the Phoenix Suns in this year, which like is not the only thing that matters here, right? I think there are a couple of guys we'll get to who are going to be like, okay, well, he can do something now, but the real upside's later. He is, to me, he's not one of those either.
Projects as a plus player off the ball on offense. Like that is, you get a big wing who will be a positive for you in the off-ball role that wings are playing mostly this year. He shot 35 from 3 on nearly 4 attempts per game. It was over half of his attempts, 125 threes, 206 total shots. We like to see the free throw shooting, 2.5 a game, with that nearly half like of his field goal attempts. Like that's kind of crazy. When like comparing them, I'm not saying that it counts like that. 77% from the line as well. This draft is very short on guys who are supposed to shoot who are also good free throw shooters. It's just a lot of a lot of red flags with free throw shooting. His is not, and was a guy who just scored at the rim and shot threes for Kansas and moved well off the ball, does some heady stuff there. He had 33 assists and 28 turnovers. Again, it was just this role where, is there some untapped stuff there? I don't know. But for the Suns specifically, it's like, okay, if you feel confident in your system and you also think this kid can play right away, then sure, kind of take him here. I do not have, I'm not going to spoil your list here. We can get to them if we get to them, but I wrote about, I haven't written about Furphy yet. I will next week. But Bobby Klintman is someone I wrote about. I don't have him ranked here. Tyler Smith is someone I wrote about. I don't have him here because they were just so definitively projects to me where they clearly need time. And the odds of them being able to play rotation minutes on a good team right away seem pretty slim, and that's almost a prerequisite here. Whereas Furphy, it's like, yeah, if he's just a good shooter right away and he just knows where he is defensively, that's the thing. We didn't mention his defense. It's going to be fine, I think, but is he an impactful defender? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So we'll see. My number 10 is someone we've talked about already. I'm doing it. I'm putting Jamal Shed 10, man. I don't care.
Oh,
I'll do it. What this team needs, the TJ McConnell comp for Tyler Kolek, we'll get to it in a second. Jamal Shed is actually TJ McConnell. Okay. Tyler Kolek is not TJ McConnell. Jamal Shed. The comparison I used is if you used $100 to upgrade your character on 2K with TJ McConnell, like you made him even faster than TJ McConnell is, but also just gave him some explosiveness, some strength as well. TJ, not someone who gets pushed around by any means, but Shed like has that small, sturdy frame.
Yeah.
Wrote about him in the trade down stuff. He's ranked in the 40s, so don't expect him to go 22. But we're talking intangibles, commanding an offense, tempo, finding the right pockets of a defense to attack. It's just the jumper in his size. He's 6 feet tall, and he shot 30% from 3 over a very decent sample size that indicates he is not a good shooter. But everything else is money on him.
Yeah.
Like he can score, he can get to the rim, he can make pretty much most of the NBA passes you want a point guard to make. So if you just want your third guard not to be so much of a third guard as it is, this is a guy to just come in and tempo change every now and then, do the campaign thing, but in a different way. That's Shed. Sam Vecini, who knows? Yeah, Ish Smith, that's perfect. Like, get him to be your Ish Smith. I love that. Sam Vecini, was watching tape on him and was just like, this is like, I'm having the time of my life right now watching his defensive tape.
Yeah.
Incredibly impactful defender. I have for years, on like the Javon Carter point from years ago on this podcast, thought that even if a guy's undersized and he only defends point guards, if he defends point guards extremely well, that is still
the value in
useful.
Disrupting tempo on the other side of the ball, not only just controlling tempo, but like disrupting, make them burn 3 seconds that they weren't expecting to, make them fly off the screen and, the guard's not ready to pass it to me yet and screw everything up and timing. And
Ja's having a good first quarter. Let's get Jamal in early. Like you know what I'm saying? Like that kind of guy.
Yeah.
And then having the point guard stuff completely locked in. And I'll give him a little bit of a bump too, because I don't know how many of these guys are going to be able to. I think everyone is going to have the respect of these guys no matter what. Like Drew Eubanks is someone you look at and you watch and you be like, oh man, like they must have like hated playing with him or something. Like, no, not really. Like he was their teammate.
Yeah.
They would do anything for him on the court. Like that kind of thing is always there with these types of teams. But with that being said, that next level of trust, I think he would be able to have it more than any of these other guys.
Cam Johnson when he was a rookie. Do you think Devin Booker was ever like, I'm not going to pass to that rookie because he missed a couple of shots and he gets scared? Like, no.
Remember the Monty quotes in Flagstaff? He's like, I'm not worried about Cam. And it's like, whoa.
It's like, he is not a child. He's a,
Wouldn't be there or wouldn't be a pick there, but if they do trade down, he immediately becomes, even if they trade down to like 29, I would take him.
That's when you start reaching.
Yeah. That's when you start to get in there and all these guys.
Or not caring about reaching.
That we're going to be talking about are off the board. Who's your number 9?
Carlton Carrington.
Okay. I did not have Bub on my list.
Yeah. And I kept slotting him down like, I don't know. And I think I did stick to like consensus mock drafts a little more than you do already based on your shed inclusion. But look, I think just the passing stuff that he showed is high level.
It's kind of good.
Yeah.
Kevin O'Connor has the comp as Big Lou Williams, which I like.
Yeah.
My whole pitch on the 22 for 22 that's going to come out today was he's a pull-up three-point shooter, and that's maybe the most valuable skill in the entire league.
Maxey has made, like, I missed on Maxey evaluation because I was like, what's the point in off the dribble pull-up shooting? Well, Tyrese Maxey's pretty good. Now, is Tyrese Maxey maybe a little overrated because he got so good so quick? I think so, but...
The two comps I have in the story are Emmanuel Quickly and Bones.
Yeah, but like Quickly's a really good one of like, okay, like you're not going to be, you might never even be an all-star, but like that's super important. For the Suns' purposes, I think the passing, like if you convinced him, hey, take the shot when we need to, when the shot clock's running down, we just need, we need to eject on this possession, pick your spots. But yeah, the efficiencies are a little concerning. So if it's not there, at least you have the passing. And he does have a big size. Like if you got him to play defense, I think he'd be in a good spot. So he's on mine.
I like him a lot, but I just don't like him for the Suns because it's the taking the ball out of their hands thing, but also he's a freshman and he needs to develop right away. So it's like, yes, give him the ball.
That's true.
And now we're spending time developing another MIDI committee guy. Like that's the weird.
Yeah.
Shot 50% on his twos.
See, this is where like when we can
on his 2-point jumpers this year, which I loved.
I am taking into account like it's not just about this year. I think he probably could help them this year, but down the road, like I don't know what this team's going to look like 2-3 years down the road. So towards the end of his rookie contract, if he is like asked to do more of this stuff that he's not super efficient on, that's fine. So I'm cool with that. But yeah,
I got a Dembone at 9.
Okay.
I just want a really athletic center who can do stuff defensively for Bud.
Yeah.
And that's this guy. Mm-hmm. Don't care about the offense. Don't care that his offensive tape was bad last year because UCLA was asking him to be something he wasn't. He didn't even have the guards that UCLA had. This is our Pac-12 stuff coming in, the Aaron Holiday rule stuff coming in. Watch a decent amount of UCLA last year. Mm-hmm. They were just like scoring guards.
I don't know what they were doing most of the time.
Andrews and Mack were the two guards that they had, and they're not really point guards. So stick him with a playmaker. I'm not even saying a point guard. Like you don't need a point guard with him, but stick him with a playmaker. The explosion on you and I, like every game you watched of UCLA, it would be some crazy block or dunk that he had. He's incredibly explosive, and then defensively, it was just really good. Especially the perimeter stuff, like the rim protection stuff, I kind of get it, but he's 6'8", he's a little small, 6'9" if you round up. Like this whole without shoes things, I'm just guessing people's height at this point. I think he's 6'9", 7'4" wingspan though, so the arms are long. He can get up there. And
what's his standing reach?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Shorter than Zach Edey's, that's for sure. But I don't know if you have anything to add on him. But this is super simple, just defensive, impactful defensive guy immediately. Get more athletic, please, for the love of everything, if you can, with this pick. If you use it.
We have a couple rim rolling centers, and that's going to be interesting because it's like it's so hard to value these guys in college. We'll get to them. The other ones. I have some other ones. I do not have him in my top 10.
If you trade down to even high 20s, like I said, with Shed, but more likely low 30s for value sake, Bona and Shed are the two guys for me, and I regard their skill set high enough and how it translates right away where I have them above a Tyler Smith, for example, who is Al Harrington, but 30 years later, and it's really confusing. Cliff Robinson that's like a really good outcome for him. I don't know. My 8 was Furphy. Okay. Who's your 8?
My Ocho? Keyshawn George.
Ooh, did not have him down.
He would be, I think he might not make it to 22. He's tough for me because he's a project, again, played off the bench for Miami, but just he looks like an NBA dude. He passes better than most wings in this class. He shoots really well. He
41% from 3 on 4 attempts per game last year. This is Furphy again, where he took 6 shots a game. He took 190 in the season. He only started half the games for Miami as well.
Yeah, so he's a project. I could see him being impactful because I think he could be a good defender right away.
That's
one where if Miami generally they put out good defensive guys, I would trust him coming out of there. I don't know. I just don't know what his ceiling exactly is. It might top out pretty quickly, but for me, if it's your defense and your shooting is already there, you're comfortable playing in a not super high leverage role, I'm for it. And he's developmental. He could be really good.
It's the Furphy case, but with just a slightly different guy. And I just thought Furphy's attributes offensively were more sound, if that makes sense.
Probably.
For the immediacy.
Yeah.
Whereas George, I'm not
higher
sure.
Ceiling, lower floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My number 7 is Tyler Kolek, which is going to be high for some people, or lower, I guess I should phrase it as, than some people. I wrote a story on ArizonaSports.com. I encourage you to read it. I think the TJ McConnell comps are getting overblown. It makes sense. I get it. Hyper smart dude. Does certain things on the court, moves like TJ in some ways. I do get it. But there are certain parts of Kolek's game where the Suns either need their point guard to do this or they aren't going to be able to utilize it. Main thing is most of Kolek's passing handles that you're going to, or passing highlights, that you're going to see involve Oso Ighodaro, a 2-man game. They don't have a center to run 2-man game with now. Him running 2-man game with Eubanks last year actually would have been helpful, but it's still not enough of a reason for me.
Ideally, though, if you got a rim rolling center,
I'd have
point
him
guard off the bench, and you made that take away something off of Book, Beal, KD a little bit.
I'd move him up to 3 right now if I knew that Nurkic was out and you were getting another more athletic guy. I'd move him up 4 or 5 spots on this list. Doesn't score from the mid-range. Doesn't really score from the pick and roll at all. He ran a ton of pick and roll. Marquette ran a very modern offense. He's talked about it with Sam Vecini. That's a really good clip if you're a Kolek guy or if you're wondering about Kolek. Go watch Vecini's interview with him. Modern concepts. He talked about matchup hunting, all this kind of stuff. But he took 37 shots out of the pick and roll this year. 37. Just over 1 a game. Not really a pull-up guy at this stage from the mid-range or from 3. Was more of a catch-and-shoot guy. The numbers on pull-ups were lower than he wanted. And the scoring around the rim is TJ scoring around the rim where I see the comp, where it's you don't really have the explosion. You don't really have, you do have a first step, but it's only if you kind of outsmart a guy as opposed to just purely run by him. So I see it, and then he's a one-position defender who's going to get picked on because he's small. Mm-hmm. And TJ can handle that. I don't know if Kolek is that level of defender. I think TJ's defense is criminally underrated. So that's my whole thing on him. Where do you have him? I assume he's on your list.
He's on my list. He is at 4. I would say he has an edge as a spot shooter, even though he's probably on the ball a lot. But he has a good, 39%, 40% last or 2 years ago. So I think there's a lot of value in that. To me, it's just about changing the pace. And even if he's not getting a ton of minutes, I just see the value in that. I guess you could judge that rookie point guard might get picked on can do some stuff in the pick and roll, make the right passes versus, okay, the minimum guy example would be Kyle Lowry. Like, he would also get picked on, but he's a veteran voice. So you're judging, like, if I think I can go in free agency and there's a couple, I don't know who else, there's Kyle Lowry and other people in free agency, there's probably more value in just doing that and then using your developmental, you got 4 years with this kid on a wing or something else. And I think that's where you have to have that thought process of like, okay, well, like we need a point guard now, but is this going to serve us down the road? And that's what you're getting at, I think.
We'll talk about Isaiah Collier in a second. I have him 5 on my list for the reasons that you were just mentioning, where if I'm going to use this on a point guard, I want it to be a guy who has a chance to be really, really, really good.
Yeah.
And Collier does.
Okay.
And he's like the only guy that could potentially be available who does and is a point guard in my opinion. Bub is the other one, but
I like Collier more, yeah.
I like Collier's skill set. It's more of a pure point guard kind of thing. And yeah, Kolek, it just kind of comes back to, again, like a lot of his stuff is on the ball, and what is he providing? He's providing rim pressure. Do we think he can get there as much as someone like Collier? I don't think so. Is he spraying the ball out? He is, but Collier, with what I watched for both guys, again, Kolek's playmaking was more two-man game. Not saying he didn't kick out to shooters, but Collier was a lot more, the NBA style resonated more with me with watching Collier than him. But yeah, who's your 7?
My 7 would be, this is my reach, Kevin McCullough Jr.
There you go.
Do not know why he's settling in the 30s, mid-30s, I think, for most things I'm looking at. I don't know what his injury situation is, but I just loved his size, can do kind of everything, plays defense, reliable in that sense. He just looks like an NBA wing to me who's reliable and has played for a good basketball team. That's all I got.
I don't have anything else to say. He would be on like the top 15 for me.
Like if you replace him, Josh Okogie minutes with him, for example, I think you'd be in a good spot. Just a lot more offensive pop, makes the right reads, can handle it enough. Like there's just nothing super.
Like if Milwaukee got him at 33 and he was taking like the old PJ Tucker minutes or whatever you want to phrase it as, like where Pat Connaughton and Malik Beasley are getting run. Andre Jackson's kind of that guy for them right now, but that wouldn't surprise you at all. Or if he went to San Antonio at 35 and he was their 4th best player, or 4th most reliable player, I should put it as.
Yeah.
That wouldn't really surprise me or you. Number 6, I got Khalil Ware right here.
Okay.
Where you got him?
Oh, you're going to love this based on what I said last time. He's my number 1 on this list.
Ooh, okay.
He fell in that. I honestly think he should be lottery and a lottery.
When you watched him, you were like, this seems a bit low.
When I watched him, I'm like, oh my God. But then you watch the highlights. And this, by the way, another asterisk on this decision is if he like had a bad attitude, bad teammate, just does like brushes off his coach coaching him, like, then no. But I'm assuming all these guys are like good players, good teammates, trying to learn. I think you can get past and like reach most human beings where you get rid of the defensive lapses. So that being said, like just to your point about rim rolling, he is a really good athlete.
Does not move. He's 7 feet tall with a 7'4" wingspan. I think it's 7'5" actually. Yeah, 7'5" if we round up. And he moves like he's 6'8".
Yeah.
6'7".
Just fluid. The 3-point attempts really like make you wonder that he has everything that you would want in a Phoenix Suns center that they do not have right now. So with that being said, he's number 1, and that's maybe reaching on the reason why he didn't play defense a lot of the time. But yeah, your thoughts
there
on
are
it?
some for those familiar with the DeAndre Ayton process, the aloofness on defense specifically showed with DeAndre in college more than on offense. And Ware had some of that stuff. Leaves Oregon, goes to Indiana, starts to play harder more. The three-pointer, he took 95 in college. He took 1.3 a game last year, 43%. The free throw shooting, over 200 attempts at Oregon and Indiana. He shot 66%, which is a smidge low for me. I'm not a huge fan of it. 10 rebounds a game, 2 blocks a game, an assist and a half a game. I think everything is there for him to be exactly what the Suns want. But can he play right away? I don't know.
Here's the thing
I think
about
DeRon Holmes can play right away. I'm going to get to him a bit later.
Okay.
And that's why I have him slightly higher. But going back to your argument or not your argument, just your reasoning and my case as well for this pick, the upside there is this guy could be starting for you by the end of the year. If this really clicks together, there's not a world. It's not unrealistic to say like, oh, he's just starting and Nurk, whatever happens with Nurk happens.
I think I'm not being lively biased after watching him lately, but I think there is something to be said for it doesn't matter if a center's, kind of skinny, whatever, coming out of college. Like, if you can rim roll, you are going to, like that, you're going to put a lot of pressure on a defense. And if you're that athletic and long, you are still going to deter shots. Now it's just a matter of, like, are you in the right place at the right time? Are you chasing blocks that you shouldn't even be chasing and giving up the offensive rebound? That kind of stuff scares you with a guy like him. But yeah, I don't worry about the transition from like a center as much because, like, look, if his 3-point shot never develops, you know what? You still have a really good athlete. Like, you have a lot of NBA ready traits, and I think at least a couple of them will pop immediately.
Can you be an anchor? Don't know. And that with like, if my anchor trust or my 3-point trust was a little bit higher, I would have him 1 on this list as well. But I'm just not quite there. I will say for me, Kevin, I don't know how you evaluate the draft. You can let me know. The way we think about it, what we think about value and stuff, for where they're at 22, I think the 6 guys I have top 6 would be a win for them to draft any of those 6 guys at 22. In my opinion, and I think that there's a good chance that most of them are there, or at least 2 or 3 of them are there, which doesn't happen all the time. Like, where is that cutoff for you on your list? Not to go on a huge tangent, but just
like of guys
where you're like, yes, I'll like that. That's a really good pick. I'll give them
5.
5.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So my 6 is Khalil Ware. I think I said it for the most part. I would completely understand the pick and think it was a good pick, but at the same time, the instant turnaround is not there. If we were talking about the Suns as more of a, hey, they're pretty good right now, and we'll see what it turns into for the next couple of years, he would be number 1. But
yeah,
that's
true.
We just don't have that time to go. Who's your 6th?
I should have asked about name pronunciation. Is it Yves Missy?
Eve Missy.
Eve Missy. Okay.
Missy. I heard him say it. That's how he said it.
Cool. I Missy on that one. Oh, God. Anyway.
He is my number 4.
Okay.
I just see the plug and play stuff a little bit more with him than Ware, and I think that the defense especially is where I'm like, oh, I think you could play NBA minutes right now and have a really good shot of figuring it out.
Yeah. Same thing. To a lesser degree on the upside on offense. He doesn't have that, I don't think.
Not a stretch boy.
Not a stretch boy. Smaller, I think. But really good athlete. He does not have effort problems to that degree at all.
There's some physicality stuff where it's like I would love it if you were a Dembona playing with your hair on fire, but it was still fine.
Also, not to complain more about college basketball, but Baylor doing their zone silliness. They did that? I don't know.
13 assists to 39 turnovers, which was a very, like, you were one-dimensional for them, and you are kind of a one-dimensional guy at this point in your career.
Yeah.
But you do see him take a dribble, and you're like, oh, okay.
Can take a dribble, look at the basket, and if you have kind of a lane.
If you can take a dribble and then dunk it in there, that's kind of cool.
Have you seen Amari Stoudemire take more than a couple dribbles? You don't need to.
I don't know. But
I'm not making that comp. I'm just saying.
2.5 offensive rebounds per game in 23 minutes a game, which is pretty darn good. And I just see the energy, big stuff with him. I just see the rim running and that kind of thing for him. He's number 4 for me. My number 5 is Isaiah Collier. I have a story up right now on ArizonaSports.com. I think that he is certifiably a lottery prospect. I've been watching the draft a long time, been doing it a long time, and there's just certain guys you watch where they do NBA stuff a lot, and he's a 9.9 on the Aaron Holiday scale, where it's like, you're an NBA guy.
So did you watch a lot of tape and then just decide USC was a mess last year?
Yeah.
Is that where we're at?
Yeah, USC was garbage. Andy Enfield.
Bye.
Love what you did for us with that tourney run, but
Scared of the Big Ten. Okay.
see you later. I loved the I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase it. Creating advantages. He just creates a lot of advantages. He's a big, stocky 6'4", and once he gets a hip, he's just going to bump the guy away. And he plays physically as a ball handler. I really like that. The craft around the rim isn't too bad. Not a super explosive guy, but he's fast. And the shot is really just the only thing. It's just like, is he going to be a better jump shooter at this point? I'm not exactly sure. And like the mechanics were kind of weird, where it just kind of changed some nights. And I was like, oh, you're still figuring that out, but also made me optimistic in that if we just get him to stick to a jumper, it's probably going to be there, because the fluidity and like taking them off the bounce, it didn't look uncomfortable for him or anything like that. It was just kind of wonky here and there with his stuff. And then the passing I mentioned earlier with like comparing him to Bub and comparing him to Kolek made the most like NBA passes to me.
Higher level, manipulating.
One-handed swing pass, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, if we're talking, give me rim pressure to because God knows this team needs ball movement to get sparked by someone after last year, he would come in and get the ball moving. Like he would just, we're putting two of the big three in the corners, and like you're going to have to help on him, or he's just going to score at the rim basically. Lived at the rim, generated a lot of free throws, which is a big thing for me. Always an evaluation is if guys create advantages as a scorer, do they get to the line when they do so? He does it a lot. And the thing I should have started with in the case here is he was the number one prospect in the country going to USC and was supposed to be a top 5 pick in this class. And then USC just had a horrible year, went 15-18. He was playing with Boogie Ellis, who's a really good player, but just is a disaster fit for him. Collier needed to go to a school sort of in a way like Arizona, where they needed a point guard and they needed someone to just be on the ball and get guys in the right spots, and needed someone to put pressure on the defense in that spot. Like Ellis is already putting pressure on the offense. He needs the ball a lot anyway. There are just a lot of reasons why I think you should overlook the year that he had. And he would be, him and Missy are the two guys, are the two guys that I have as upside plays in my top 5. The rest are old folks.
In your top 5, yeah. I have Ware and him. That would mean my 2 risks in the top 5.
Collier?
Yeah.
Where do you have him?
5.
Okay.
Same Z's.
Cool. So 4 is Missy for me. Who do you have?
Kolek was 4 for me.
Okay.
And here's on the 3. Kyle Filipowski.
Ooh, boy. Not on my list.
Not on your list at all.
I love it when we do this. Go for it.
Do you not like him at all? I'll go.
You go first, because I just don't want us to like crap all over the guy who is a talented basketball player, but I don't think fits with the Suns.
Oh, here's the thing, Kellan. I feel like he has Al Horford like stay in the NBA ability. He will be able to do lots of different things. He's a little undersized. He can pass.
Can
stretch
worse
you.
Al Horford?
Can he be worse Al Horford? And you know what that allows you to do, Kellan? It allows you to trade Yusuf Nurkic at some point, if you need to. And then you have at least a starting center, and like you still have the problem of like you would need a rim runner or whatever. So maybe that fit's not good if you're really against that. But I think he's going to be a really good, long-time NBA player, and I just think there's a lot of value in the versatility. I don't think he gets enough credit for he can move his feet pretty well. And honestly, when you watch him move in transition as an offensive player, he sometimes can do like Euro steps and stuff, which everyone can say he's undersized and slow. But if he's going to play 5, he's going to play 5. Like I don't know why he's listed by some people as a 4. Do you think he's a 4?
No, that would not go well.
Okay.
I think he's a 5. Is he a... Okay. This is a draft prospect who we were lower on at the time than some, but he still went really high. Can he be good Frank Kaminsky? When Frank Kaminsky was good, can he be good Frank Kaminsky?
Yeah, that.
See, the problem is Kaminsky, I knew he was a good shooter at Wisconsin. I don't know if this kid is a good shooter. I just don't know.
Okay.
Are you a plus shooter for a big? Because
What do
if
you
he's-
shoot, like 34 maybe, something
He was
around
at
there?
31.4 for his 2 years
okay.
together at Duke. He was at 28 2 years ago, and then he was at 35 last year.
Okay.
Free throw shooting 72 for the 2 years combined. So that makes me feel a little better.
Okay.
A little better. But I just need to know if you're gonna shoot 37 plus for a big.
Mm-hmm.
If I know that for a fact, then I like it. But I think we're running into similarities with Nurk.
Yeah.
Where
Yes.
all of a sudden we're looking at a guy who might be a good shooter. It's like that's kind of Nurk in a way, who doesn't really move that great, isn't going to explode around the rim.
You can ding me, especially because like I'm making an assumption that they would trade Nurk even soon, within the year or something. Like maybe it's too redundant, but I just think like we're in the range of certifiably, I'm sure this guy's going to be in the NBA in a couple of years.
Yeah, if they had a blank depth chart at center right now,
Yeah.
I'd have him on somewhere on my list. But it's just I know you have Nurk, and I don't know if you're going to be able to get rid of him
That's
this
fair.
year. And if we're having this, if I'm taking a center at 22, it's the guy coming off the bench for Nurk.
Yeah.
And I don't want that.
Okay.
For him, I think that he is. I think a fun thing that I would do if I had more time to, which I'm not going to find probably. Maybe we'll talk about like next week or whatever once we get to like where teams land or where guys land. But I mentioned Kashad the other time. This draft is absolutely going to have at least 5 guys outside the lottery who are in the top 10 of this class, because that's just the way it is. And like he might be on that list for me just in terms of NBA stuff that he does. Like he's kind of around there for me. He was your number what now?
3. What is your 3?
Duron Holmes is my number 3.
Ooh.
Do you
Better
have
fit.
Duron?
I don't.
Ooh, okay. My case, he is the big in this class to me where I know for a fact that he is a vertical threat on dives, and I know that he is a shooter.
This is good that we both had these 2 center guys.
Yeah. And with Filipowski, with Missy, with Ware, with Adambona, with whatever other center that you want to mention, like if you want to count Tyler Smith as a center, there's just uncertainty with those 2 things offensively that you provide. And on top of that, Holmes is a better scorer than any of those guys. He can really score. He took nearly 9 free throws a game. You know I love that. I looked at some StatHead sports reference comparisons, and his free throws and production, it was like Ike Diogo, Tyler Hansborough, Blake Griffin, like all-time college scorers for bigs. And he was in that group. Shout out Ike. Ike ruled. It saddened me it didn't work out in the league because he was a really fun player.
Yeah.
Defensively, I don't know. I can sit here and say I don't know. Is he small? Yeah. Naz Reid is small. That's my comp was. You see Naz Reid work in the NBA, and you're like, where is the next Naz Reid that you can find? It's not Duron Holmes. Duron Holmes will not be Naz Reid. They're different players. But can I get a legitimate difference maker offensively at the 5 that is not
Dynamics.
has a modern offensive skill set at the 5?
Yeah.
And I think Duron Holmes is kind of in there. Like, talk about rim pressure, again, the free throws. Like, he's getting in there.
Yeah.
You can get rim pressure from your center. He doesn't really have the handle that Nas does. He's not shake and bake. It's more of straight line drive stuff. But again, it's Jokic closing out on him. It's Jonas Valanciunas closing out on him. He can drive by those guys. He can make it work. I think the plug and play offensive skill set here is absolutely worth
He can shoot
serious
too.
consideration. I'm not worried about it.
Okay.
The free throws went up a lot. Like it was 58 to 66 to 71 or something like that, which is, not the most chill. I would have loved it if he just shot 70% all 3 years. That would have been.
Even Collier was like at 6. Was he in the 60s?
Yeah. His is. That's what I was.
Everyone on all of these lists,
He attempted 26 total threes in his first 2 years for Dayton before 83 last year, and he shot 38.6, and the jumper just looks good.
Yeah.
It just looks good. Another thing here, Kev, he was, to the Filipowski point, to the Missy point, he was prominently involved in their offense. He was their number 1 option. He averaged 20 points per game after 18 last year. Last year, took 11.5 shots per game. This year, 12.1. So just basically the same offensive role from a usage standpoint. Got his assists up from 1.7 to 2.6. So he was seeing stuff on the floor a little bit more. The turnovers went slightly down, too. So there's
to
just
pull in our Arizona
a lot
knowledge. Yeah, go ahead.
There's just a ton of statistical positive indicators for me with him. And then when I watch him play, I'm like, you can play in the NBA pretty quickly. The report on Duron Holmes here we should mention because earmuffs everyone. When the Suns didn't take Tyrese Halliburton, it seemed like there was some funny business at hand there. Was it promises? Was it medicals? Was it, I don't know what it was. That was the feeling around the time. Tyrese later clarified that it wasn't. We'll see. Deron Holmes canceled a bunch of workouts. Everyone thinks that the promise is from the Nuggets at 29. If I was him, I would love to go to Denver, and I would tell teams to stay away from me. I want to go be a Denver Nugget. I would just take him anyway if he was there. And the two guys that I have next are off the board.
I was going to say our Arizona knowledge comes in when dude plays 38 minutes against Arizona, who has the big you're going to blow by.
Big boys who move.
Big boys like Umar Ballo, but then they also were switching.
Kashad was getting on him, yeah.
Pal Larson. So there were two NBA players and an NBA-sized center in there. 23 points, 11 boards, 3 assists, 3 steals. He did have 4 turnovers, a block, hit a couple threes. Like, he just looked like he's going to be productive at the next level. Yep.
Your number 3 was Filipowski.
Kyle.
Who's your 2?
This is probably your 1. Spoilers. Tristan da Silva?
It's my 1.
That's your 1.
And your 1 is Khalil Ware? Okay.
Yeah.
Do we talk about da Silva now or my number 2?
Your number 2.
Terrence Shannon. No, it's a bit of an office bit. I understand it. Terrence Shannon Jr. is a wing out of Illinois. Earlier this month, he was found not guilty of felony rape and aggravated assault. He was initially suspended 6 games in late December for the incident before getting granted a temporary restraining order to finish out his season. You and I very much understand anyone's trepidation on him hearing about this. I swear I'm not trying to meme or do anything here funny by saying the do your own research line, but the details of the trial are out there. You can read them if you want and make your own decisions based on that.
The quick summation is it would appear, based on all the evidence, to be mistaken identity. Mistaken identity.
He was at a bar. Kansas and Illinois played a football game. He was at a bar in Kansas, and there was an incident that supposedly happened, allegedly, from the woman's side. Shannon said in the trial that he never saw the woman in question. There were multiple witnesses who stood by Shannon's behavior at the time and didn't see him getting up to anything that resembled what the woman was discussing or alleging at the time. And he was not guilty. So now he's at a stage now where his NBA draft stock was sort of in limbo. It was does he go, does the team take a chance on him in the second round? Do teams just stay away in general? To where he's quickly gaining momentum now and seems like he's going to be a first round pick. But it's just a matter of when. Okay.
Basketball.
Ready for a list?
Okay.
Here are the guys where if I get them in the big old, you get the claw, the Toy Story scene. Where
I've watched the movie lately, Kellan.
I love the claw metaphor from time to time. Oh, yeah, you have. Is that the one?
Oh, yeah, it's the one.
Oh, that's a good one, though.
We have,
Bluey or whatever that.
It's always.
That show is called. Are you singing that one yet?
Every toy. Yeah, Bluey.
Okay.
I want more Bluey in my life.
I love the claw metaphor, and if you're in the claw machine and I claw you out and I put you on an NBA rotation tomorrow and I know I have the best chance of getting good minutes from you.
Yeah.
Here are the guys in this class. You ready? Donovan Clingan. Give me Devin Carter. Do I want to say Jared McCain? He's kind of young. Tristan da Silva we'll talk about in a second. I'm already debating. Terrence Shannon's on the list.
Okay.
Here's the thing. Shannon, the whole deal on him. Shannon spent 3 years at Texas Tech. He was more of a role player. He was doing role playery stuff. People were like, ooh, I really like the defense, the explosive plays, all that kind of stuff. Cool. He goes to Illinois, immediately shows that he's far more than that and one of the best players in the country. If Zach Edey didn't exist, he would have been the story of his conference and would have maybe been a National Player of the Year. He was already a contender for that award as it was. But was sensational. He completely dominated the Big Ten tournament, set the scoring record in it, and then he scored 85 points in 98 minutes in the first 3 games he played in the NCAA tournament. He was amazing. And then he ran into Donovan Clingan's interior defense, and Brad Underwood's plan for Illinois was to just run straight into the best rim protector in the country over and over again, and that went horribly wrong. He is the most explosive driver in this class. Shannon is all about speed and all about getting downhill. When you watch him, and I don't fault teams for this because I watched like 15, 20 of his games over the course of the year, you watch him in transition, you're like, slow down, easy. Like you're out of control. He's just not out of control. He earned enough trust and showed enough over enough time in the game that he is never out of control. There's slight moments where you think he is, but he's really just not. And he just gets to the rim. And teams had no chance of stopping him in a one-on-one play. They had no chance of stopping him in transition. He took nearly 9 free throws a game last year. He shot 80% on those free throws. Again, we're talking about free throw shooting here in college, and we've been talking about it a lot. 80% on nearly 9 a game. Like, that is knockdown stuff at that level. And here's the thing. He's not just getting to the rim because he can't shoot everyone. He took nearly 7 threes a game last year, and he shot 36% on them. This is a guy who was their offense by all accounts. They had another player named Marcus Damask, who was this weird mid-major dude who suddenly turned into being really good, who kind of had a back-to-the-basket game. They called it booty ball when he played because he would just get in the mid-post and score.
Illinois.
It was kind of weird, but Shannon was like their creator. They didn't have a point guard, so he was asked to do all this extra stuff for them. So he was taking threes off the dribble, and he was hitting them. He was just hitting them, and some of those were at range as well. And his numbers actually, Kevin, were better off the bounce than off the catch, which might be a slight alarm here because he's going to be in a more supplementary role. But we know catch and shoot is easier. We know that just means you need a professional NBA team to just sit with you for a couple weeks. It doesn't have to be Chip England working with you. You just have to kind of figure things out and go from there. So offensively, I've got a guy who, when I'm playing him off the ball, because he's not really going to come in and be your number 1 or number 2 option right now. He's just going to be a wing. I feel confident with him playing off the ball already because he can shoot. I'm confident that he is going to be a average to above average 3-point shooter pretty much right away. Rookies can be weird sometimes. I don't know. But man, if I get him and you're closing out on him, even if you're just kicking the ball to him and the guy is playing back and letting him shoot, Shannon's just going to blow by him anyway. And then he's going to get to the rim where he's going to draw a foul or he's going to finish. He's really explosive. I can't emphasize that enough. And the turn for me, Kevin, and why I have him number 2 on this list is because he can defend. He is a underrated defender. Again, this was a guy who, as a scoring slashing wing, was asked to be their point guard basically last year. And while doing that, there were some nights where their coach, Brad Underwood, would be like, let's get Terrence on this guy. Like, we don't really have anyone to guard this guy. Terrence, can you do it? And he would do it. There were lapses, don't get me wrong, but again, 5-year player taking on a huge role. There's a montage that I'm going to include in the story that I have next week, which is just a minute 30 of him getting pick sixes because he was just attached to guys off the ball. I think with a smaller offensive role, which is going to really just shrink in comparison to the offensive burden that he had for Illinois. I think defensively, he is going to be potentially impactful immediately. And then I get a plus guy off the ball offensively. And guess what, Kevin? The Suns have someone athletic now, besides Kevin Durant, who can really get up and down the floor besides Bol. Like, those are the 2 guys, really, and they just got here recently. You get some athleticism, you get some speed. And I'm saying it out loud, Kev. Like, end of the year, he could start. Like, I think there's an outcome where everything clicks for him, and you're looking at it, and you're like, man, with how he's irritating guys defensively, like, he can start. I think that he's not a can't miss, don't get me wrong, but the only flaws for him is, like, he doesn't really have a mid-range game, so he's not scoring, and he turns 24 in late July. But that's really all I see here, unless teams are talking to him and they're not sure how much he cares about defense. But I saw a guy who cared about defense.
He's 222, so he's a big kid.
Strong, yeah.
I think your argument, he would kind of check box you across the board. You get rim gravity, you get transition, you get athleticism, you get another wing defensively. Again, if we talk about, okay, if Josh Okogie's playing or Nasir Little's playing, like,
comparison.
You just take those minutes.
Yeah.
Those minutes are open right now. It doesn't, and like, look, then you still say we have a point guard problem, but he would also help with, like, okay, you can bring it up. We're fine with that. You get it into the offense. If you had to, he can do that. Yeah.
A little bit of scoring too. Like, if you need it, it's there.
That's the thing about, like, look at Bol, for example. Like, people say they don't need another scorer. They have too many, like, doing that. It's like, no, like, again, Grayson had a really good season. Bol had a really good season offensively compared to their past because their jobs were really easy. That's the point of the big 3. So if you bring in another guy who can score easily already, he's going to make the most of his opportunities because they're going to be really wide open looks.
So for weaknesses, just again, because I'm talking about a guy who I don't really think has many weaknesses at all, I'm going to give you the professional take here.
Yeah.
Jonathan Givony, while Shannon had an exceptionally efficient season, it was largely built on his free throw shooting and shot-making prowess, as he still has something to prove as a spot-up shooter.
Yeah.
So that's where he's going to the catch and shoot numbers. That's where he's going to the more supplementary role. Can he still highly impact games or impact games positively without being on the ball so much? I have no doubt that he will be able to do that. But Givony is there. He said he turned in several huge games late in the season when his jumper was falling, and he has significant potential on both ends. I agree. I think it's one of those things where it's a Cam Johnson thing where like I see a guy like who, can I sit here and say he will not be an all-star? No. Like I see some stuff there. He needs to get better in a lot, but man, I think it's really there. And then with the Ringer and Kevin O'Connor, who has him 23 on his board now, so moved him up quite a bit. Hasn't defended well as an upperclassman. Effort isn't the same as when he went to Texas Tech. Thinks he's a bit undersized. I think that's a really good point. He's 6'6", 6'9" wingspan. So can he guard like the Kawhi Leonard, Harrison Barnes, 6'8", 240 wings? He's a little bit smaller than those guys. He's more of like a guard forward tweener in terms of how big he is. I think that makes sense. Noted that he was a streaky shooter over his 5 years in college. Shoots well from the line, but hasn't been able to translate it to the perimeter other than his junior season. That's where I, again, am like, that's the hard part is over. It's just the easy part now. And then mentioned not having a floater, which I think is a legitimate thing, but I think he just dunks on those. He just dunks on Embiid anyway.
He's drawing fouls instead of that. Yeah.
He's just drawing contact, yeah. So I think that instant impact, him, Holmes, and De Silva are the three. And you can hear it with me. Like I'm almost talking myself into Shannon, but it's like so much of his value is playing as one of the best players in the country, whereas De Silva for me was playing more of the role that he would already be in the league, and that's why I have De Silva just slightly ahead of him. But as you can tell, like Shannon, I think he's like easily a top 20 guy in this class, and if a team takes him like 14 or 15, I'll be like, yeah. Absolutely. A team takes him like 10, and they're like, I have 4 raw European wingers to choose from, or I can just take the guy who I know is good at 3 things right away. I know that he can defend, I know that he can get to the line, and I know that he can provide athleticism.
Yeah.
Like that's, and use it on the ball is how I should phrase it, because a lot of those guys have it there. So you have De Silva 2, and then 1 is Ware.
Yeah.
What makes De Silva such a no-brainer here if he's on the board? Because I think that's what we're working with here. But to be clear, if De Silva and Ware are on the board, you're taking Ware.
Yeah.
Oh boy. But De Silva, go ahead.
Yeah. I just think that's what they need is a connecting wing who can do a little of everything. He can shoot. He can make the right read. He can pass. He can defend a little bit. My only concerns with him, and you can go like on your rant about him, is can he defend at a pretty high level, decent enough level? I don't know.
We're not doing what like the Terrence Shannon Jamal shed, like, oh man, like Paul George is really going, let's get Tristan in there. That's not gonna be it. That's not him. My comp is wing Dario.
Yeah.
Like the best version of Dario is a wing with the playmaking considerably down. I think that De Silva rightfully so gets praised for his passing. He averaged 2.5 assists per game. Again, like Deron Holmes did that as well.
Keyshawn George did that.
So it wasn't, but it was just every pass he made, it was like, oh, nice pass. He's a nice pass guy. Every time he passes the ball, you're like, nice pass.
Keep the ball moving, yeah.
He can be a connector guy. The seas have parted, Kevin. I can see the sky. The clouds are no longer out. I have a prospect in front of me with tangible evidence that they can shoot. It's beautiful. I love it so much. Freshman year, takes 15 threes. And then he's taking 75 into 137 into 162. His three-point percentages last 3 years, 37, 39, 39. His free throw percentages after taking just 12 as a freshman, again, didn't really play at all, and then immediately started and played 28 minutes a game. 80, 76, and 84, 79 for his career, 39 for his career from 3. He can shoot. I love it. He's big. He's 6'8", 220. Not really, again, explosive athlete. Hyper quick athlete, no, but can he use his size enough, and does he get to his spots enough? I think that he does. slight red flag, Kev, just little bitty one. I would have liked more than 5 rebounds a game. I didn't watch enough tape to get into like why he wasn't rebounding, and was it something where he wasn't crashing? I know Eddie Lampkin played there. Who else played there? Was someone else taking his rebounds? I don't know, but he seems like the type of guy who should have grabbed like 8 or 9 a game, which is how big he is, and just efficient. Has a little bit of a mid-range post game that I like, where if you're dribbling and if you are in the corner, like let's say you're in the corner here, like Josh Hart is over here on the other corner, and you're making the rotation on Josh Hart is protecting the rim. I don't know if Tristan da Silva can finish over even like a Josh Hart specifically, but can you take like a little cute 8-footer? Yeah. I like that, having that in your game. I like that having it in your game when I'm not exactly sure about rim finishing as a plus for you. I'll put it that way. But I said that he is far and away like the plug and play wing in this range. When I wrote the story on him a couple weeks ago, that was before Terrence Shannon had the stuff clear up. But I would group those two together as the two far and away clear guys. And to me, if either guy is on the board, it has to be the guy the Suns take. To me, it's not even a question. I think there's a huge drop between 2 and 3 on my board. I think it's big. Yeah.
I mean, to go back to it, I have a lot of prospects on my board, and that's like, okay, these guys, I just don't know. That's what's crazy though, is there are a couple of just like surefire, we know they're good. That's why I have Filipowski on my board. And you don't, but for a different reason.
Yeah, De Silva 50% on 2-point jumpers. He took 115. I like that.
Even low 40s on those are often like
61 around the rim too, so it wasn't crazy. 56% assisted, so not serious creation stuff, but was doing enough for himself. And just has like a really, I want to call it basic game, but just a basic game in terms of checking boxes. That'll translate.
Feel.
You can connect. You have the feel. Defensively, you know where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot of stuff like that. Before we go, we've been here a minute, but we do all this work, Kev. We might as well say all these things out loud. There are a couple of guys in this range that we didn't mention, and I wanted to get, if you have any thoughts on them or just why they weren't here, go for it. I believe we cleared ESPN's top 25. Let me say this, or let me mention some names and tell me if they wouldn't be number 1 on your board. Here we go. Cody Williams, just in case he falls. He's working out with teams like
Do I sit here
1.
silently if not?
Just say no if they wouldn't be number 1 on your board. I'm saying if these guys are on the board, it's a dream scenario. The Suns take him number 1 yet. Go.
No, yeah, yes.
Devin Carter.
Yes.
Ron Holland.
Yes.
Jacoby Waltzer.
No.
I would have him 3. I would have Shannon and Da Silva still ahead of him. McCain.
Yes.
Guard, shooter. The strengths, here's the ESPN pre-draft analysis. Physical and competitive guard, dynamic shooting, rebounding, intelligent style of play. Weaknesses, not great length and not great burst. Still has to prove something as a small ball wing.
Young, but does energy stuff, smart stuff. Yeah, shoots the crap out of it.
He is top 5 on my fit board, where if he gets to the right team, oh, watch out. The Kobe Buffkin board, when he went to Atlanta last year, I was like, oh. Zach Edey.
Yes.
No. You need a team that is going to utilize what he does and maximize his skill set. And to the point of Tyler Kolek in the 2-man game, it's like, are you going to run 6 post-ups a shift?
I would just count him as a rim roller.
Interesting.
His
so
finishing.
I'm not getting touches on the block. I'm just getting rim running, and and we're good. He's really big. He's a really big guy.
I think people are going to be surprised at how much frightened defenses are going to be like, oh no. Because
when DeAndre was drawing double teams immediately, because teams were like, oh my God, this guy's so fast. How is he already at the rim? We need to send all of our rotations over. I'd have him on the board.
That wasn't a strong yes, but I think I'm sold on him falling to 22 because everyone's sold on he'll never be there.
One more guy that's in that grouping we should mention, Nikola Topic, who we talked about with Damon briefly, partially tears his ACL, looking like he could be a sit out the whole year thing. Guess what? With all that in mind, I would still take him if he fell because it would be a lottery level, a top 10, maybe even top 5 for some people guy.
Or it's an asset. Trade him in can you trade a rookie in February
Is
who hasn't played for
actually
you?
a wing in this class that has has skills, has guard skills, has dribble stuff. Stephon Castle is the other guy where I can see the skill a little bit. Other names, we didn't mention Jalen Tyson, but I just see another scorer guard guy, and I don't think you need that here. And he's older, so that he kind of is what he is. Baylor Shireman, do you want another Grayson Allen dude? Worse Grayson Allen? I'm cool. Ryan Dunn is awesome on defense, but he cannot shoot, and he looks scared to shoot. And if you don't...
How scared is he?
Scared.
Scared.
It's scary to take shots on the basketball court sometimes. I hate to do the baby voice for Ryan Dunn, who's a prospect I really like. But it's just on offense, you got to be able to do something, and I don't know if he's doing anything on offense right now. Andre Jackson was a guy out of Connecticut we loved last year, and it's like, could he shoot? No, but he did playmaking stuff, and he could pass, and I just...
Yeah, need one more thing, a little bit.
Need one more thing. Bobby Klintman, I mentioned earlier, big wing, but just like a little bit slower and loose with the ball than I would like to see. The Jalen Brunson clone, AJ Mitchell, who I'm going to go write about at my desk after this. You got Harrison Ingram thoughts?
I like him, actually.
I do, too. He's
big.
Yeah.
Modern 4. Yeah. I guess he's not that tall, but he's a big dude. I mean, he's a Nasir Little again.
I think
the draft hype.
Kashad is like the most confident I've felt about a U of A prospect in a long time, and I only saw him for a year. It's like... I don't know, but I'm this person who sat on this podcast 2 years ago and raved about Christian Coloco, who went through a really unfortunate situation with everything that he had going on. So I'm going to add an asterisk to my claim that I thought Coloco was going to be awesome.
No, yeah.
You know? Dalen Terry still holding out hope in Chicago, although he's a playmaker who can't shoot, and they just traded for a playmaker who can't shoot.
Great.
Good stuff.
Job. Go Bulls.
Good job, Bulls. Still doing stuff that's smart. Anything else before we go?
No, try to get Jeremy out of here.
Yeah, obviously we'll be back if Royce O'Neal signing happens or trades happen. We'll see. The plan is we're potting the night of the draft, as always. I'm not doing it with Cole Zwicker because you're on a vacation somewhere or whatever. You remember that? Me and Cole for 45 minutes were like, Cam Johnson, what?
I was on it.
It's a good one to miss because we just roasted that pick the whole time, and I was just in disbelief trying to figure it out. Cole, who knew way more about that draft
picks
than I
before?
did.
I would
crazy.
never. All right.
Kind of crazy. All right. Good luck to the Florida Panthers, Jeremy. I should say it officially somewhere. I told you earlier today. I hope they get it done for you. But Jeremy, our video producer, diehard Miami sports fan, is that how you would characterize it? Not Florida itself, but Miami itself. Traveled to Florida to see his beloved Panthers in the Stanley Cup. They haven't clinched it just yet. And at this point, Jeremy would just like them to do it. They didn't have to do it in front of him when he was at the games. That's fine. Just do it. It's not like there's the best hockey player of the last 30 years to worry about on the other side who's going through an all-time postseason. Of course, the one year the Panthers are making a run, it has to be this guy they're facing. He looks fine. Jeremy doesn't look distraught off camera at all. It's all good. All right. See you later, everyone.